Have you ever felt the silence after trying so hard to be seen? You show up. You offer your time, your attention, your kindness, and yet it feels like you're still invisible. As if your presence, no matter how sincere, somehow doesn't register on the radar of the person you care about. You start to ask questions in the dark quiet, ones the kind you don't say out loud. Am I not enough? What am I doing wrong? Why doesn't anyone stay? But maybe, just maybe, the question isn't about doing more. Maybe it's about being differently. There's something ancient inside you, something steady, unshaken by whether someone calls back or validates your worth. And yet, most of us forget that part of ourselves the moment someone looks away. We chase, we explain, we overgive. But what if love didn't require you to convince? What if the most powerful way to show your worth was silently, not with declarations, not with performance, but with presence? Tonight, I want to invite you into that stillness, into the philosophy of the Stoics, not as distant marble statues, but as soft-spoken sages who understood this one truth. Your worth is not up for debate. It is not earned through applause. It is lived, and when you live it, others feel it, even if they don't know how to name it. So in the minutes ahead, I'm going to walk with you through 9 quiet actions, stoic, gentle, unshakable, that will remind both you and the people around you that you are someone who values themselves deeply, someone who doesn't need to prove because your existence already speaks for itself. Someone who can love without losing themselves. These aren't tactics. These are truths. Not strategies to manipulate, but reflections to embody. And if any part of this resonates, if you've ever needed a quiet voice to remind you of your value, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, or simply pause and let this sink in. You're listening to Silent Sage Stories, where thoughts soften and self-respect becomes a kind of poetry. Let's begin quietly and honestly, because the world may not always clap for you, but you're not here to perform. You're here to remember who you are and show it without a word. There's something deeply painful about not being recognized for who you are, especially when you're offering the most honest parts of yourself, the things that aren't wrapped in glitter or designed to impress. Just you, showing up, softly, and still, they look past you. But here's the quiet truth. You weren't taught. Your value exists even when no one acknowledges it. The Stoics said it simply, what is truly good is not up for vote. You do not become more precious because someone finally sees it. And you do not become worthless because they didn't. Imagine a gem buried in a field, uncut, covered in dirt. Most people would walk by it without a second glance. But that doesn't change what it is. The gem remains rare, timeless, priceless. You are that gem, and I know it hurts to be overlooked. We live in a culture where worth is broadcasted, followed, liked, where being seen feels like being validated. But what if you chose something different? What if, just for this season, you stopped trying to be seen and started seeing yourself? What if, instead of asking, "Do they like me?" you asked, "Do I admire the way I'm living today?" Self-worth, in the Stoic tradition, isn't a performance. It's a practice. It's how you speak to yourself when you're alone. It's how you behave when no one's watching. It's in your kindness when there's nothing to gain. Your honesty when it costs you. Your peace when everything around you is loud. Let that be the mirror you measure yourself by, not the fleeting attention of others, but the deep, quiet approval of your own conscience. Because here's the paradox. When you stop begging to be seen, you become undeniable, not through loudness, but through steadiness, not through charm, but through character. And that brings us to something even more misunderstood: dignity. Dignity is not stiffness. It's not pretending to be above feeling. It's not Stoicism as cold detachment. Dignity is how you treat yourself when no one else is treating you well. It's the way you carry your soul. Think about this. Have you ever met someone who wasn't flashy, who didn't say much, but whose presence quietly demanded respect? There's something magnetic about that. They're not selling themselves. They're simply being, and it's enough. That's the essence of dignified presence. It doesn't mean you hide your interests. If you love books, love them out loud. If your heart leaps at piano notes, or wildflowers, or long walks through empty streets, let it. But don't shrink those things just because someone else doesn't see the beauty. Dignity is being completely yourself and not apologizing for it. And it shows up in your boundaries too. When you treat your time, your attention, your emotional energy as sacred, you're telling the world, this is valuable. Handle with care. If you criticize yourself constantly, you teach others that it's okay to do the same. But if you move through the day with quiet respect for yourself, you set the bar silently for how others are allowed to approach you. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters." In relationships, this doesn't just mean reacting calmly. It means choosing actions that align with your integrity, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Are you bending who you are just to fit in? Are you tolerating treatment that chips away at your soul just because you're afraid of being alone? Then let me gently offer you this. You are not here to be someone's background noise. You are not an accessory to someone else's convenience. You are not a placeholder. You are not a second choice. And every time you hold your head high, speak honestly. Protect your peace and honor what matters to you. You are reclaiming your worth, not loudly, not angrily, but clearly. So tonight, maybe all you need is this reminder. You don't have to prove your value. You only have to live it. And that changes everything. If this made something inside you stir like a long-forgotten truth finally waking up, you're in the right place. You're listening to Silent Sage Stories, where wisdom isn't shouted, it's remembered. So breathe deep, straighten your spine, and let your presence begin to speak quietly, fully for itself. Some of the most powerful things we say in life are never spoken aloud. We communicate through how we stand, how we listen, how we give or withhold our time, our body, our choices, our silences. They speak long before words ever do. And if you've ever been in a room where someone didn't talk much, but you felt everything they were feeling, you already understand the power of nonverbal communication. The Stoics knew this. They believed in presence over performance, in carrying yourself in a way that quietly told the world, I know who I am. But that doesn't mean becoming dropped or closed off. This isn't about being untouchable. It's about discernment, about not offering your depth to everyone on demand, about allowing others to earn your emotional energy instead of handing it over like loose change. You see, when everything is available all the time, nothing feels special. And we've become so conditioned to share everything, quickly, recklessly, publicly, that we forget intimacy takes time. Mystery is not manipulation, it's protection. Selectiveness is not arrogance, it's self-respect. So when you practice the art of nonverbal stoicism, you're not becoming aloof. You're simply saying, my time, my attention, my story, they matter. And I will not scatter them into every wind that passes. You begin by being intentional with how you show up. Clothing, for example, isn't just aesthetic. It's communication. Dressing with quiet care, with elegance that doesn't scream for attention, sends a message. I value myself, and I don't need your permission to do so. It's not about hiding. It's about revealing less. So what is revealed means more. And then there's time, the most undervalued form of communication in relationships. We rush. We overextend. We answer immediately. We stay late, even when we're exhausted. But why? Because we're afraid that if we say no, we'll lose them. But here's the truth. If someone's interest depends on you being endlessly available, they're not interested in you. They're interested in access. So start saying no without explanation. Let silence be the full stop. Let delayed replies be a soft boundary. Let being unavailable become a quiet form of sacred space. And when you are present with someone, be fully there, not distracted, not anxious to impress, just there, attentive, curious, open, because presence, when it's rare and intentional, becomes magnetic. This is how you teach someone what it feels like to be around a soul that honors itself. Now let's take this a step further. Imagine this. You're in a situation that feels off. They're pulling away. Or maybe they've crossed a boundary you never thought they would. And something inside you is screaming, "Leave." But you stay because you're hoping it will change, because you don't want to be alone again, because maybe you're still waiting for them to see your worth. I want to say this gently. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, not to punish, not to dramatize, but to protect the sacred thing inside you. The Stoics taught that power lies in distinguishing between what we can control and what we cannot. You cannot make someone respect you. You cannot force someone to value you. You cannot beg someone into becoming who you hoped they were. But you can decide whether to stay or go. And that decision, that's sacred. That's yours. You see, we talk a lot about love as holding on, but sometimes love means letting go. Letting go of relationships that shrink us. Letting go of dynamics built on fear, not freedom. Letting go of waiting for someone to become ready. It's not easy. Of course not. But there's something incredibly dignified about choosing yourself not in selfishness, but in clarity. The moment you stop asking, "What if I leave?" and regret it, and start asking, "What if I stay?" and lose myself, you begin to shift. You stop living from lack. You start living from strength. And yes, walking away will cost you. It will cost you the illusion. It will cost you the fantasy. It might even cost you the comfort of being half-held. But in return, you get your peace back. You get your integrity back. You get the space to meet someone who doesn't need convincing to cherish you. And that's the quiet revolution of a person who finally realizes, I don't chase what hurts me anymore, because they've remembered something ancient, something the world keeps trying to make you forget. You are not here to beg for crumbs. You are not here to shrink, to fit someone's comfort zone. You are not here to keep proving your lovability. You are here to be, to love, but never at the expense of self-abandonment. To give, but never from depletion. To stay but only where you are honored in return. So if you've ever needed permission to stop overgiving, let this be it. You can leave. You can pause. You can protect what's precious in you. You don't owe everyone access. And sometimes the strongest thing you'll ever say is said by quietly walking away. If this stirred something real inside you, if you're rethinking what you've tolerated, subscribe, leave a comment, or just sit with this for a while. You're listening to Silent Sage Stories, and this is the kind of wisdom we come here to remember. You don't have to yell to be heard. You just have to mean what you do, and do it from a place of peace. It's easy to say what we won't accept. It's much harder to live it. I won't tolerate disrespect. I won't let anyone cross my boundaries. I won't compromise my values. But then someone does, and we hesitate. We make excuses. We give second, third, fourth chances. We whisper to ourselves, maybe it wasn't that bad. And slowly, without meaning to, we train others to ignore the very lines we thought we drew in stone. The Stoics had a name for this kind of self-betrayal, a misalignment between words and actions, because to them, character wasn't what you said. It was what you practiced under pressure. So how do you silently enforce boundaries? You do it with decisions, not declarations, with quiet exits, with unanswered calls, with calendar space reclaimed, with dignity that doesn't explain itself. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to walk in the direction of your values without turning back. And yes, this will confuse people. They'll expect the old you, the one who explained too much, tolerated too much, apologized for things that weren't your fault. But that version of you was rooted in fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of seeming difficult, fear of losing something, even if it was hurting you. Boundaries aren't walls. They're invitations. They say, this is how to love me, Joe. Anything less doesn't get to stay. And you can teach them without saying a word. Imagine someone lies to you. It shakes you. Not just the lie, but the realization that they didn't protect your trust. You don't need to scream. You don't need to punish. You need to respond. Maybe it's space. Maybe it's a calm conversation. Maybe it's choosing not to share your vulnerable parts for a while. Maybe it's leaving altogether. Whatever your response, make sure it aligns with your value system. Because when your actions match your principles, something beautiful happens inside you. You stop feeling fragmented. You stop wondering, why do I keep letting this happen? You stop shrinking to avoid conflict. And that quiet power of showing, not telling, becomes a language all its own. It teaches others how to move around you. It teaches you how to stay loyal to yourself. And this loyalty, it transforms everything. It shifts your relationships from unstable guessing games to sacred spaces where mutual respect is the baseline. But that only happens when you stop confusing kindness with compliance. You can be warm and still have boundaries. You can love deeply and still say no. You can be forgiving without being foolish. And maybe no one told you this, but let me say it now. Your silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the sharpest line you'll ever draw. Now, let's talk about another lesson from the Stoics. One that feels almost too simple to say, but changes everything. Watch what people do, not what they say. We all want to believe words, especially beautiful ones. I miss you. You're everything I ever wanted. I'm working on myself. But words are wind, and the wind can change direction. What doesn't change? Behavior. The Stoics believed in reason over sentiment. Not to be heartless, but to be honest. Because if someone says they care, but consistently make you feel like an afterthought, that's the truth. If they promise to show up and never do, that's the truth. If they speak of loyalty, but act in secrecy, you already know. But we hesitate. We wait for proof, as if the absence of care is not proof enough. Why? Because we've been taught that giving someone the benefit of the doubt is virtuous. That patience equals love. That waiting for someone to change is noble. But here's a thought. What if protecting your peace is noble too? What if not wasting years on false hope is love? What if the greatest gift you can offer someone is letting them experience the consequences of their own inconsistency? When you stop overvaluing words and start observing patterns, you reclaim your clarity. You begin to feel less crazy because you're no longer gaslighting yourself into believing stories that don't align with reality. And clarity, it's a kind of healing. It says, I saw what you did. I heard what you said. And I believe the part that showed up consistently, because that's who you really are right now, not the fantasy version, not the potential, not the maybe someday. You deal with what is, and in doing so, you become free, free from cycles, free from illusions, free from staying just because someone knows what to say, to make you stay. So the next time someone's words and actions don't match, don't argue, don't beg, don't explain, just step back and watch. Truth always reveals itself. And when it does, believe it. You don't need to fix people. You just need to recognize the difference between a story and a standard. If this brought something into sharper focus for you, if a situation in your life suddenly feels clearer, take a breath. You're listening to Silent Sage Stories, where clarity arrives quietly and sometimes painfully. But you're ready for this. You're ready to start trusting not what they promise, but how they move. And more importantly, you're ready to move differently yourself. We all want to believe that this time will be different, that they mean what they say, that the early sweetness wasn't just a performance, and it's not wrong to hope. Hope is human. But when hope overrides reality, it becomes denial. And the Stoics, they had no room for denial. They believed in seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. They taught that wisdom begins where illusion ends. So in love, in life, in the quiet moments where you question whether you're overthinking or just finally paying attention, the Stoic invitation is this: cultivate healthy skepticism, not cynicism, not bitterness, not closing your heart forever, just enough space between what you hear and what you believe. Because emotional clarity isn't about coldness, it's about discernment. When someone you've just met says all the right things, too quickly, too perfectly, pause. Let their actions speak. Let time do what it always does, reveal. And if what they say doesn't align with what they do, you don't need to confront it. You don't need to demand explanations. You simply don't move closer. That's the Stoic way. Not because you're guarded, but because you're grounded. And here's something else to consider. Most people aren't lying to you maliciously. They're just unaware of themselves. They believe their intentions are enough. They don't realize that real trust is built on follow-through, not fantasy. So when you keep your eyes open, when you pause instead of plunging, you're not judging them. You're just protecting the part of yourself that has been betrayed before. And that's not trauma. That's intelligence. Because being too trusting isn't kindness. It's misdirected loyalty. And loyalty should never be given before it's earned. Let's take it deeper. What if someone wants something from you? Emotionally, physically, spiritually, that you're not ready to give, and your gut says no, but your mouth hesitates because you don't want to seem difficult, because you're afraid they'll leave, because part of you still believes that denying someone else's desire makes you unlovable. Let's be clear. Saying no is not rejection. It's revelation. It reveals what you stand for, what you value, what you won't compromise, even for connection. And yes, it might cost you the moment, but it will protect your lifetime. The Stoics didn't flinch when people disagreed with them. They weren't looking for approval. They were looking for alignment. So when you say no, not to punish, not to shame, but simply because it violates your inner compass, you are living with integrity, even if your voice shakes, even if you lose someone in the process. Because here's the thing about boundaries. They don't just keep the wrong people out. They also clear space for the right people to find you. People who don't need access to your body to respect your soul. People who see your no and say, "Thank you for being honest." And maybe that feels rare. But maybe the reason it feels wrong is because you've never stayed silent long enough for them to appear. You've been too busy trying to keep the wrong ones interested. So let me ask you something gently. What if saying no didn't make you harder to love? What if it made you easier to respect? What if it made you more visible to people who don't need you to perform softness, just to stay? Think about the people you admire. They don't say yes to everything. They don't bend their values for convenience. They don't rush into things just because they're afraid of being alone. And yet, they are radiant because their no is clear, their presence is earned, and their yes, it's a gift, not a default. You can become that kind of presence. You already have the capacity. You just need to remember what it feels like to stand in your own truth without apology. And you know what happens when you do. You stop attracting those who only want you when you're pliable. You stop entertaining those who crumble at the first sign of your boundaries. You begin drawing in people who say, "I see you," and "I honor the space you protect," because that's what real connection feels like. It's not constant closeness. It's not perfect agreement. It's not instant chemistry. It's mutual reverence. It's shared self-awareness. It's the courage to say no and still be loved anyway. So the next time you feel that pull, that little voice whispering, "This doesn't sit right," listen. Don't rationalize it away. Don't smother it in politeness. Let it guide you. You are not difficult. You are discerning. You are not too much. You are too honest to keep pretending. And every time you say no when it matters, you're not just setting a boundary. You're building a life where your truth is safe to live in. If that resonates with you, if you're starting to feel your no as a form of self-love, subscribe, comment, or just let that feeling echo inside you for a while. You're listening to Silent Sage Stories, where saying less often means becoming more. This is what strength looks like when it's quiet, and it suits you. There is a moment we all face when someone begins to pull away. Their texts slow down. Their voice changes. Their presence fades like a song ending too soon. And instinctively, we chase. Not always in dramatic ways. Sometimes it's subtle. We send one more message. We give them space, but not too much. We analyze their last word, hoping it wasn't goodbye. Because if we just try a little harder, they might stay. Right? But here's what the Stoics would ask you. What are you trying to control that is not yours to hold? You see, chasing someone who is moving away isn't an act of love. It's an act of fear. Fear that we're not enough. Fear that being alone means being unloved. Fear that our worth vanishes the moment they stop looking at us. But your worth, it's not a reflection. It's not a mirror that only exists when someone's eyes are on you. It's a constant, a current, a quiet fire that doesn't go out when someone walks away. So when they pull away, let them drift, not because you don't care, but because you do. You care enough to not cling. You care enough to protect your dignity. You care enough to say, if your leaving reveals something, I want to see it clearly. The Stoics understood this truth. When you chase, you surrender your power. You begin to perform, to predict, to prove, and all the while, your center, the part of you that is calm, rooted, unshaken, gets lost in the noise of trying to earn what should never need earning. Love is not something you plead for. If it's real, it arrives without negotiation. If it's true, it doesn't require you to shrink. And if someone's care disappears the moment you stop chasing, it was never care. It was convenience. So here's the reframe. Don't chase. Value. Value yourself. Value your silence. Value your energy, your peace, your time. Because when you hold yourself in high regard, something powerful happens. People begin to respond to that energy, not the energy of desperation, but the energy of groundedness. Not please pick me, but I choose myself first. And that choice, it ripples. It tells the universe, I am ready for love that doesn't make me beg. It tells the people around you, I don't fear being alone, because I like who I am when I'm by myself. It tells your heart, we're done chasing. And I know that letting go is scary. You might be thinking, what if I never find something like this again? But the question isn't whether you'll find something similar. The real question is, why would you want something that required you to abandon yourself to keep it? You don't want what's familiar. You want what's right. You want what sees you and stays, what respects your no, and never punishes your boundaries, what grows with you, not just around you. And to receive that, you have to stop moving toward what doesn't move toward you. Let stillness become your filter. If someone values you, they will move closer. If they don't, they will drift. Either way, you learn. Either way, you're free. So let's redefine strength. Strength is not proving you can win someone back. Strength is knowing when to stop trying. Strength is letting the unanswered text stay unanswered. Letting the fading interest stay faded. Letting silence stay silent. because you're not desperate. You're discerning, and what you carry, your kindness, your depth, your presence, is not for the careless. It's for those who recognize its weight and hold it with reverence. So if you're in a place where someone's walking away and you feel the urge to chase pause, breathe and remind yourself, I am not here to convince. I am here to connect. And connection is not something I force. It's something I recognize. If they go, let them. If they come back, let them show you. But either way, you remain whole, because the real loss isn't losing someone else. It's losing yourself, trying to keep them. And you've done that before. This time, you stay with you. If these words resonated, if they stopped your fingers from texting, or gave you the strength to exhale and let go, you're in the right space. This is Silent Sage Stories, where we remember that some of the greatest forms of love begin with self-respect, and it's not loud, but it's unwavering. Somewhere, someone taught you that love has to be loud, that it has to chase, prove, persist. But maybe love doesn't need to scream to be real. Maybe it just needs to be rooted. Maybe it lives not in grand gestures, but in steady ones. In the way you choose to stay soft, even after disappointment. In how you speak kindly to yourself, especially when no one else does. In the way you quietly walk away when something dishonors you, without slamming the door. The Stoics weren't interested in performance. They were interested in peace. They believed that real strength isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself, your attention, your reactions, your focus. And that's the secret most people miss. The most attractive thing about you is your inner stillness, not your status, not your achievements, not your image, but the calm in your eyes when someone tries to shake your worth and fails. The grace with which you say no. The honesty in how you say yes. So here at the end of this long and quiet conversation, let me offer you something. You are not just lovable. You are love already. You don't need to try harder. You don't need to become someone more interesting. You don't need to perform self-worth. You only need to live it. And when you do, you'll see the difference. Your world will shift. Your relationships will deepen. Not because you forced them to, but because you stopped diluting yourself to be chosen. You became a place where peace lives, and those who belong in your life will feel it. They'll feel your value before you speak. They'll treat you with care, not because you demanded it, but because you embody it. And if they don't, you'll have the strength to let them go gently. This is the quiet revolution. Not loud, not desperate, not performative, but powerful, enduring, stoic. So before you go, take a moment, place your hand on your chest, Feel the steady rhythm. That's life. That's love. That's enough. And if this message reached you at the right time, if something deep in you whispered, "Yes, this is me," then you're not alone. You're walking this path with others. Quiet souls, steady hearts, deep thinkers. You've found your place, so subscribe. Leave a thought in the comments, or just come back when you forget. This space is always here. Until then, stay soft, stay discerning, stay sacred, and remember, you never needed to shout to be worthy. You only needed to remember. Thank you for spending your time here in stillness with me. This has been Silent Sage Stories. Until we meet again, stay wise, stay kind, and walk quietly, like the legend you already are.